Hey everyone, and welcome to The Take. I'm Elizabeth Wagmeister.
And I'm Clayton Davis, and we're here to give you our take on some of the week's biggest stories. It's been kind of a crazy week this week.
It is always a crazy week. This week was no exception. And in our new magazine, we revealed Variety's annual salary report, which is when we show off the mega millions that the biggest stars in Hollywood are making. You're gonna die when you hear how much Leo DiCaprio made just from one film. Trust me, you guys want to stick around for that. But first, let's start off with one of the biggest stories of the week. R. Kelly's trial began in Brooklyn, New York. Last week, we told you that jury selection had begun. Well, now the trial is underway. There was a gut-wrenching testimony from a woman who said that at the age of 16, she began to have sex with R. Kelly, even though he knew that she was an underage minor. There's obviously going to be a lot more disturbing details coming from this case. It's just began, so we will obviously stay on top of that developing story, Clayton. But first, I know there was a huge movie premiere this week, and it's a film that you're excited about.
I am. Marvel's Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings premiered on Monday. Variety was in attendance on the red carpet. While it looks like it's another hit for Marvel, the box office still remains to be determined, and we can talk a lot about the awards merits and box office potential of it. But as we saw with Black Panther, the only film to be nominated for Best Picture that was a Marvel movie, the only film to actually win Oscars for Marvel, I think this will do for little Asian kids everywhere what Black Panther did for the Black community. So I'm really excited about it. And I think it's great. I actually think it's top 5 Marvel films.
Wow, that's a big testament from you. And of course, I agree, representation is so important. It really matters who you see reflected on the screen when you're growing up.
Absolutely, Elizabeth. And then we had Disney CEO Bob Chapek called Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings an interesting experiment. It drew a lot of criticism over the internet. The star of the film, Simu Liu, reacted to it, said we are not an experiment. And with a group that's been so underrepresented in films, and I don't think it was a racist comment, it's just, you have to be very careful on what you say, especially when there's a movie like this that's going to mean so much to so many people.
I couldn't agree more. And as you said, could have been taken out of context, but obviously words matter, representation matters, and in Hollywood, money matters. So you were talking about the box office, and there's been a lot of discussion in our business about changing models. Of course, Scarlett Johansson, she sued the Walt Disney Company because she's not getting her back end from the box office with everything being on streaming. But don't worry, guys, because stars are still making millions and gazillions of dollars. Leonardo DiCaprio making $30 million for an upcoming Netflix film in which he is co-starring with Jennifer Lawrence, who's making a cool $25 million. But that's nothing compared to Daniel Craig, who is making $100 million for the 2 sequels for Knives Out, which was also acquired by Netflix. I've just got to ask, Clayton, do you think this is too much money? Because back in the day, $20 million was seen as the gold standard for the top tier A-lister. But now with streaming platforms, they have so much money, and obviously the fight for talent is just so contentious, they're just shelling out the big bucks everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's a great shout out to our colleague, Matt Donnelly, who did this great report. What I was more taken with the list, there's 17 people on this list, 3 are women, and there's numbers 7, 8, 9. No women of color, no Latinos on the entire list. So this whole fight for representation and inclusivity, and people think the industry's changing, we're making steps, but these are such baby steps. We are nowhere near where we need to be yet. And I think that's what is most highlighted by this damning report.
I love your take on that. I couldn't agree more. There's enough money to go around. Let's give some of that to women, to people of color. The only way to do that is to cast them in these top roles so that they could become the A-listers that they deserve to be, and then they'll get that money too.
Yeah.
We're saying it right here on The Take. That needs to happen. But let's lighten things up a bit and talk about what else. Bachelor in Paradise. Clayton, we went to the premiere together last week. We had such a blast. The first episode aired this week. I loved it. Did you watch?
I did watch it. I'm a big fan of reality television, period. And, Housewives is always near and dear to my heart. Bachelor in Paradise, it's, 2-year hiatus. It's back. People are going to get into it again. We have a new crop of singles, quote unquote, that we're trying to figure out. I can't tell you anyone's name yet, but it's one of the tent poles for ABC, and I think it's just going to continue to build popularity. I think people want to feel a little bit of an escape, as things are getting a little weird around here.
Absolutely, and the reason why it hasn't been on for 2 years is because of the pandemic. It shut down production last summer. Then, of course, there was so much drama with The Bachelor, with Chris Harrison stepping away from the franchise. So this is the first season without Chris Harrison. There's a new crop of not just singles, but also guest hosts, and one of those guest hosts is David Spade. Now, I interviewed him, and I think that he is hilarious on this. I think it really freshens up the franchise. He tells raunchy jokes. He's not holding anything back. He told me that producers aren't censoring him. So I asked him, what do you think about comedians being censored during cancel culture? This is his take.
You say the one wrong move and you're canceled. It's a very tough world out there, and everyone's wanting to be a good comedian, because I don't think anybody wants all comics to use the same 8 jokes that have been approved. Like, I'm okay with that one. So I still do stuff where people go, but I think all the comedians have gotten together in a way and saying, we just have to keep doing what we were doing, and the people that come to the shows will appreciate it. But the intent is not to be mean or this or that. If the intent is to do it as a spin or a joke or a spin on something that is mean to people, but you're just making fun of that, I don't think that's horrible. And I've been in the business doing it for 20 years. So I hope comics are allowed to be comics. I really hope so.
Listen, I love David Spade. He's one of the OGs in the comedy spaces, and it's always great to hear him give his take on anything. Also interesting, another OG, Barbra Streisand, gave her take on something this week. Barbra Streisand, during an interview with an Australian talk show, seems to be changing her tune on the 2018 remake of A Star Is Born that starred Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper, calling it the wrong idea. This is interesting because Barbra Streisand starred in the 1976 film, A Star Is Born. By the way, the 3rd remake in the Star Is Born universe. She won an Oscar for Best Original Song, so did Lady Gaga. Lady Gaga's movie grossed $435 million at the box office. It seemed really out of nowhere for her to come out and be hard on this movie all of a sudden, especially when Gaga has this big year coming up, and A Star Is Born was hugely successful, was nominated for 8 Oscars, including Best Picture. Guess what? Babs' film was not.
Ooh, you have some fighting words for Babs Clayton.
Don't come for my Gaga like that. You know, I love Babs, but come on.
I agree. I mean, look, she's earned the right to say whatever she wants to say. I happen to disagree with her take because I loved A Star Is Born with Gaga and Bradley Cooper, and I cannot wait for House of Gucci with Lady Gaga. But let's bring this moment full circle with news of the week. Okay, so Barbra Streisand didn't just star in A Star Is Born, also, of course, in Funny Girl. Well, guess what? Beanie Feldstein was just cast in the Broadway revival of Funny Girl. I can't wait for that. Do you like this casting?
I can't wait. And we also got the first look at her in Impeachment, the new American crime story, as Monica Lewinsky.
Yes.
She's got a big year coming up.
Big year
ready for it.
For Beanie Feldstein. All right, well, always lots of news for us to talk about. And you guys know that we have a lot of news for you every week. So make sure to stick with us and tune in next Friday on a brand new episode of The Take.
Thanks for watching.